Welcome to Secrets from the Saddle podcast. I'm Sylvie, your host, fellow cyclist, bike club founder, cycling coach, bike race junkie, just truly super passionate about cycling. My journey with cycling started 20 years ago when I opened a spin studio, started a women's race team, and founded a women's only cycling club called Cycle Fit Chicks. I'm super thrilled to reveal all aspects that make the world of cycling operate. I'm so excited to be able to bring you interesting people from around the world, pro cyclists, recreational cyclists, coaches, event organizers, bike shop owners, everything and everyone you need to know or ever wondered about when it comes to cycling. I know you'll enjoy this episode. This podcast episode is sponsored by Shopify Queen Sarah Jensel of Jensel & Co. Do you currently have a Shopify site selling products or services that aren't performing as well as you're hoping? Or do you have a product or service you'd love to sell, but you have no idea where to start? Well, my girl, Sarah Jensel, the Shopify Queen, is a person to talk to. She is amazing and brilliant at branding and is currently helping me completely revamp my website on Shopify to showcase my new brand and selling my products. So if this sounds like something you've been looking for, please reach out to her on IG at Sarah Jensel, that's Jansel. Leave her the code Sylvie, that's Sylvie, and she will add you to her free Shopify Facebook group, where she coaches weekly on Shopify strategies and has tons of content to help you in your Shopify journey to building your online business. So don't forget, DM her on Instagram at Sarah Jensel, Jansel, and leave her the code Sylvie. She'll reach out and add you to her community. Thank you very much and have an amazing day and enjoy the episode. All right, welcome back to another episode of Secrets from the Saddle, All Things Cycling Podcast with your host, Sylvie Daou, sitting here in Chelsea, Quebec, Canada. And I have good friend Simon Osamoh, who is sitting in New York.
No, Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Minneapolis, that's right.
Minnesota. The Vikings,
that's right. Yes. How can I say you're wearing the shirt? My son plays for the Vikings here in Gatineau. Different thing, but anyways. So Simon is a good friend of mine. We met at a mastermind program last year, and I did not know that he was a cyclist. Of course, cycling being part of this podcast, Simon was saying that he's a cyclist. And but before we bring out the Simon cyclist, I'm gonna tell you a little bit about Simon himself. So Simon is an author and a podcaster as well. He specializes he's a safety expert, and as a former UK detective, maybe we might have to get into that little bit of background of his. He's turned entrepreneur and mindset coach. Simon loves asking people the tough questions to learn how they became who they became. And let me just say that Simon interviewed me, so I should be on his podcast at some point in time where we will share that as well. So Simon, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, I'm really excited to be here. I mean, I listen to your podcast an awful lot when I'm cycling, so I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
Thank you. Oh, you have to listen to the latest ones with Joe Friel.
Yeah, and I don't know if I should say it, but I normally have one of my AirPods in just for some type of music. Some people might say it's dangerous, but I only have one in. I still have some situational awareness, and then I listen to podcasts as I cycle. So yeah, great to be here.
Thank you. Hey, I'm the same way. Just have one in so I can listen to everything. So we have Simon. So through our conversation, like I said, I found out Simon is a cyclist. And he started telling me about this specific event that he participates in, and he's been participating in. So this is what we're going to kind of move our podcast episode into, and it's called Fathers for the Fatherless. So I'm going to, instead of talking about giving a description, we're going to have Simon talk about that as we get into the podcast. So my first question to Simon: how did you get into cycling, and how did it lead you to participate in this event?
Yeah, so there's a lot in here, so stop me if you want to unpack anything. But I first really started to get into road cycling in around 2008, 2009. And so very different than me being here in the US and maybe up in Canada, but I joined the police at 19. And I saw, I think I was 21 when a woman died in my arms. I've worked on counterterrorism cases. I've seen, so much human brokenness. And I can remember one time I was just looking for some type of release, some type of outlet, because you talk to people that work in emergency services, and there's a sick type of humor that can go with it, and generally that's as a coping mechanism. So when people joke about their bodies or things that happened, you're not supposed to, as humans, we're not supposed to seal that brokenness, but in law enforcement, you can do that. And I was looking for a release, and I don't know why, Sylvie, but for whatever reason, I drove past a cycle shop, and something just caused me to stop and go in. And I went in there, and very quickly, hopefully my wife isn't listening, but I bought a very expensive road bike on a bit of a whim. I bought all the stuff, and I can remember the first my wife said was, "You spent X amount of money, and the bike doesn't even have pedals." I'm like, "No, the pedals are not feet." So she really sort of pushed it aside and said, "This is all on you. This is all on you, Simon." And what I really found was that cycling became my release from the stresses and strains of, working in a highly sort of stressful environment, by sort of very confrontational work environment. And most of what we were doing were organized crime investigations, meeting people that were very sophisticated in what they do. And it was on those long rides that I had my clarity. It was on the long rides where I had the sort of peace and understanding. And it's actually on those long rides where I had my sort of best ideas, sort of within the entrepreneurism sort of world. I've always, since age 19, I've always been buying and selling houses. So, the cycling really gives me sort of clarity. So that's really how I got into it. And as time has gone on, the bikes have got more expensive. And again, I'm not going to talk dollar numbers just in case my wife listens, but
we don't have to. We know exactly how much it costs.
Yes, yeah. So it's sort of developed. So that's really how I got into cycling. It became a release from the stresses of a highly stressful sort of work life.
So that was in the UK then, because I mean, cycling in the UK is. I know cycling in the United States is big, but cycling in the UK and Europe is just, 10 times what it is here.
Yes, and actually, imported my bike with me when I moved here as well. Maybe I should have sold it, but I bought it with me. And you're right. I mean, and the difference between Minneapolis, Minnesota, where I live, is a lot of the roads are quite flat. There's not too much hills. I mean, when I was doing 70-mile races in the UK, I mean, you're going up hills which are like, all the time you sort of stood up trying to get up there. Whereas here in Minneapolis, Minnesota, where I am, a lot of the roads are flat. So it's a different style of sort of racing for sure.
Oh my God, yes. So do you still race now, or do you just ride more for leisure? Yeah, not leisure, but like your weekend rides.
More of a second. I mean, I've got two young sons, 8 and 11. The youngest is a budding soccer player, and one of the hardest things for being a parent, particularly being a man, is knowing that you've got to put your kids before yourself. So it's very difficult. When my youngest is traveling, sort of locally and sort of around the US, he's training 4 or 5 times a week. So my trainings are generally for leisure, just trying to push myself. Yeah.
So do you get out there and train when he's training? And you have to like drop him off there, wait for his.
Yeah, I think it's similar to what you said this morning. As we approach the summer here now in Minnesota, I'll be on my bike 5, 6 in the morning, come home at sort of 8 o'clock when everyone's just waking up. So, doing that thing, sort of trying to grab the ride time when I can. So yeah. It was a lot of fun.
Also ideal for weather too. I don't know what it's like in Minneapolis, but we've had already some record numbers in heat here, like in May, which has been crazy. And you just can't even go outside.
Well, and then it's like with you. I mean, we're under snow 7, 8 months of the year.
Yeah.
So summers are short. You've got to really do what you can to enjoy them and stuff. So it was fun.
Yeah.
I mean, I tried to get, I've done 100, 150 miles in sort of per week, but they're shorter rides more often than sort of doing the longer distances. So this race again in the summer, the 100 miles is going to be quite a challenge because I don't do that length of distance all that often. So there's a bit of grit and determination I'm going to have to rely on to get through that one.
I think you and I are in the same boat because I just signed up for a 100-mile gravel race at the end of June. And I've been able to go out and do a number of 100-kilometer rides like weekly, like on the Saturday mornings. But still that's that extra 80K that could really provide. So let's talk about the Fathers for Fatherless. For the Fatherless, and like, how did you find that, and what drew you to this particular? Because I've never heard, like, I've heard up here there's a motorcycle rally for fathers and dads, but I've never heard of this one.
Yeah, and it's well.
So you want to talk about that?
Yeah, happy to share. And it's going to, for your listeners, it's going to get a little bit deep. So I don't know if you have more female listeners than men, but the females might be clutching for the hanky, but the men might be sticking their chest out macho. But so it really starts back. So part of my upbringing, my mum is white English, my dad is Nigerian, and my parents actually separated before I was born. And so I've never met my father, the man that sort of brought me into this world. And I was around 13, 14 when that really became sort of a problem for me, if you like, sort of trying to seek sort of validation, acceptance from a man that was never there. It's always been a difficult time of my life. Particularly as you're a teenager, you see, as I mentioned, my son, that's one of the reasons why I go to all his games and put myself second. I joke about it because I want him to know that I'm sort of there for him and supporting him, because I saw my friends at soccer games, at rugby matches, whatever it was, they would have their father there cheering them on, and I didn't have anyone there for me, and it left a sort of quite a sort of deep scar. And it was only really, I'm sort of 43 now, and it was only really in sort of later years that I managed to find a sort of coping mechanism to deal with it. And I think I had a sort of a bit of a realization that, well, one of my dads sort of abandoned his family. And that also used to sort of be very hard, thinking, well, why did he never try and find us? Why is he not in our life? These sort of things. But my mindset shifted, thinking, well, what was my granddad like to my dad? Maybe this wasn't all on my dad. Maybe my granddad wasn't a very good father to him. Maybe he's sort of replicating the adverse behaviors from what he might have seen in his life. And it doesn't mean that I've sort of forgiven my dad for the things that he's done and the abandonment I feel, but it got me to a place of understanding, thinking, okay, so I can't change the past, but what I can do with my two sons is break the cycle of brokenness. So I can do the things to be there for them. So that was one of the revelations that I really had. And then the second one, Sylvie, was also for the fact that I believe that it happened to me because I have the inner strength and mindset to actually deal with it, which is one of the reasons why, I play. So some of the Canadians might understand this, but, cricket, rugby, soccer, sort of football, tennis, most things that I pick up, I seem to do well at. And most of it comes from my mindset of overcoming adversity and persevere. But if you can battle your mind, you can pretty much achieve most things in life. And it's that I now use to inspire and motivate young men to sort of be the best versions of themselves, with or without a father figure in their life. So I sort of tried to fill that gap for them. So that's the sort of the tissue stuff out the way there, Sylvie. So sort of the upbringing, if you like. And then basically really interested in what happened with Fathers for the Fatherless is that a friend of mine, Brian Hanson, met him at church one day, and I sort of said, what are you up to right now? And he said, well, in a few weeks I've got a race coming up called Fathers for the Fatherless. My sort of wife gave me a sort of a nudge, and I said, well, those are type of charity organizations I love to help, and sort of told him my sort of backstory. And they said, well, I have to connect you with Jeff Sark, who runs the organization. And I looked online to try and sign up for the race. And actually the the sort of entry had closed, so I couldn't sign up for the race.
Uh-huh.
And then the night before the race, it was a Friday night, and it was like 9:30 at night. I had a text from Brian, and Brian said, Jeff Sarg, who runs the race, is looking for volunteers, looking for marshals, from people to help out still around the race. And he said, do you have some time tomorrow that you can help? And I sort of text back and said, yeah, I'm sure I could do something. What time do you need me? He's like, can you be in Minneapolis for like 4 a.m.? Yeah, and I was in bed at like 9:30. It was like 9:30 at night. He's saying, can you be in Minneapolis? And it would have been so easy. And I've got to admit, if I'm truthfully honest, my fingers went on the text and no had already come out. And I was sat there thinking, another life saying I have, if not me, then who? If I'm not going to do it, then who is going to step into it? And I sort of deleted the no and said, yeah, give me Jeff's number. I'll go and help. And so I did. I had 4 or 5 hours sleep. I drove to Minneapolis, and Sylvie, it was inspiring to see it all together, because the organization, these are either fathers, or some of these people might not be fathers as yet, but there's around 130 guys there. They get together to do this race. It's in 5 or 6 different states, and the object is to do something hard and to raise money for the fatherless men, to give them opportunities. So they ride it in a peloton. It's a 100-mile race, and it's an incredible organization. And as soon as I was there just helping out, I knew that this is something I've got to do. This is something I've got to sort of help and get involved in. So it's I think last year the organization raised around $400,000 US. Wow. I can remember from my upbringing how many fatherless young men is that going to support with activities, with mentors, with giving them guidance and those things that they might not necessarily have the opportunity to. So it's incredible. Like I said, the opportunity to ride in a peloton doesn't always happen that often. When you see 130 people riding together, it's an incredible sight, and everyone's got we've got the same jerseys and even hats and everything. So so that's a little bit about how I got into it.
So can I just go back and ask you maybe some personal questions about your upbringing?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I'm an open book.
All right.
So you want.
So I want to ask about your mom. Did she ever give an explanation as to, what happened to your dad? To this day, have you ever found him?
Yeah, and that's a great question. So I turned 44 this year. I believe, as best as we can find out, I think he might have died when I was 5 or 6. I think my dad had a lot of brokenness. He was clearly a troubled man. He wasn't very nice to my mother, that is for sure. I mean, she was English. She moved to Nigeria to be with my dad in the 70s, when it wasn't necessarily the done thing for a white woman to sort of, be in a relationship with a black man. Added, she then moved to sort of a third world country. So she pretty much left in the middle of the night, went to the British Embassy. They got on a flight to London and said, never come back to this S-hole. And she never did. And it became sort of, I think my mum turned 80. I think one of the things she said was, she was sorry, but she never really spoke about it. But I want to make it clear also for people listening that part of it was on me, because I made the decision never to ask my mum about it. I mean, I was 33, Sylvie, when I asked my mum for the first time what my dad's name was. I sort of knew, because I'd sort of seen divorce papers and stuff over the years, but we'd never really had a sort of conversation. I wouldn't say it became the unspoken about subject, but it just wasn't really, it was never really spoken about. And I think that's what I've learned from being a father myself now, is to be more open and more vulnerable about it, because there's definitely power in my story that can help other young men as well.
Yeah, and I like what you said, Simon, that you're breaking the the cycle, because I find that I'm in a cycle as well. Like with I had my parents, but it was more of a loveless lack of communication type of environment. Farmers, like, I don't know, my mom wasn't that happy, and things like that. And it had a profound effect on me as an adult, and how I deal with relationships. I, just asked my husband, like, thankfully he is a good communicator, because I am not. And like you said, you hold a lot of stuff in, and I try to, provide like a lot of communication in the house with my kids. I have three
Yeah.
kids, a lot of love, so that this trend has not, it's been broken. Like, they will go on to have great relationships. Now it's just up to me to provide, a good relationship between my husband and I, so that they have great examples.
Yeah, and it's true. And I think,
Yeah.
tying into cycling as well, I think that's one of the, I was raised in sort of, I don't know what we call it in Canada, in social housing, you'd call it here in the US, council house for England. My mum then used to foster to make money. So she's fostered over sort of 30 kids over the years. As a result, we had my two brothers moved with us when they were 2 and 4, and they got to like 12 and 14. And my mum sort of said, we're never going to hand them back. So we sort of adopted my two younger brothers. So I've never really had too much possessions, too much stuff. And now I've got older and I have some of that stuff. There's a realization in there also that, it's not about the fancy bike that you've got. It's not about having the greatest equipment. It's actually about, it's your mindset. You could give someone, I could ride a crappy old $100 bike and I could mostly still beat someone. The reason why? I have the mindset to keep pushing through, to sort of control your mind and stuff. And I think that's what you learn about yourself in those hard times, is that inner resilience, that inner strength. And it's definitely what you then call of when you're then cycling and in races. You need that inner strength to keep pushing through, because your mind will play tricks on you. Your mind will say that you cannot do this, but you can do it if you persevere and keep on pushing through. It's too easy to give up,
Now, Simon, do you find when you're on your bike that you have those emotional times when you're thinking about the past, the present, the future? Because I know there are some times where, like, I could break down and cry, or I'm so happy, or I'm so mad, like it's like a plethora of emotions that our bike brings out in us. And I'm sure you must, and you go through all these scenarios and like.
Oh yeah, I mean, like I said, I have it's for me, it's when that clarity comes, because all you're doing, you've got your head down, you're pushing through. There's nothing that you've got really at that moment in time other than these two cogs are sort of turning on the wheel. And it really gives me my best clarity for my ideas, or for times I need to, drop someone a message and see how are you doing, or go and buy something, or a new project to work on, or new mindset. It really just gives me that moments of clarity, because you have nothing other than the saddle, the road in head, and pushing around. It's some real realizations that that's all that really matters, is the relationships and the connections that you have. So again, tying it into this race, there's some people that go through this race but have never even cycled before. So it's helping and pushing them. They've just seen the course and set a Cal one in. Very, very brave to do. I wouldn't necessarily jump into a 100 mile. I wouldn't advocate it for anyone.
Yeah, me neither.
So again, it shows what they can do. Yeah.
So how many years have you been doing or participating in the Fathers for the Fatherless event?
So this is only my second year, but my goal really is, for the listeners, hopefully I'm sure you'll put a link to the
yes, for sure.
Yeah. And I've got to give that plug about money as well. I'll have a sponsorship links depending when this comes out. I'll put that down. But it's my intent to try and do more. I think as I sort of said, why do I do it? Because I've realized that my story can help other men, and perhaps some of your female listeners, their partner, significant other could have been raised in a home where there wasn't a man present, and they're still sort of troubled by some adversity. And I think I can sort of feel part of that void, I can put that hole in. Because one thing that you find, so here's the funny thing as well, like my father-in-law, very handy, does stuff around the house and does different things. I've developed those skills because I'm also a landlord, because I property invest. But I would go to do you know Home Depot?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know what you call it in Canada. I'll go to Home Depot and I won't think to take my sons with me, and my wife would come back and say, maybe get the boys involved. Well, why? Do they really want to come? But it's a realization to me, Sylvie, that because I've never had a father in my life, I don't necessarily know to do those things. So it's like I have to consciously be reminded that actually it is my role to take them with me to Home Depot and show them the shelves and where stuff is.
Yeah.
So I feel a calling to be that sort of to be that hole in other young men's life, even if it's just through listening to my story as to how I know, because no one did it for me. So I'm learning fatherhood without with nothing to base
role
off.
model.
No role model. What is a good father? What is a bad father? I've got no idea. I'm just fumbling in the dark, trying to do what I think is right. And when we're shouting at each other, I know that's bad fatherhood, or that's not going right.
This is a good idea to do some Home Depot kind of projects. How to use a hammer, hit a nail, use a screwdriver.
Yeah, it's good. It's fun.
So how has this impacted, like you said that you've jumped into this and you've been riding for a long time. Do you participate in other events throughout the summer along with this one, or is this one of your main ones?
This is one of main. In Minnesota, we have like 10,000 lakes here, and there's there's a sort of ride that goes around a lot of the lakes. So we've got to start trying to get back into that. What the challenge that I have, and maybe some of your listeners can relate to this, is particularly being sort of work. Family, it's really hard to try and make the commitment to a club. And I know obviously you have your sort of group that go out. So I think my goal for the listeners to sort of take something from it is my goal is to try and work into the time where I can join a club, where I can do more races. Now I just race, not race, now I just sort of bike with friends to get the distance up. So I think that is finding the time is one of the challenges that I have. But again, it's about just doing what I can rather than saying it's such a shame that I can't do those races. It's more, how do I work up to getting into a position where I have the time to join a club to do races?
I think it might be time, Simon, for you to get your sons on bicycles.
Yes. Yeah, that is true.
And the whole family. And then there's so many events other than races, that that you could participate. And I don't know, like you talked about the soccer, biking to soccer. I don't know if that's even possible, but those types of things, because they're of the age, and it's kind of like this year I forced my kids to get into mountain biking.
Yeah. You voluntold them.
I did voluntold them. We even went out and bought a bike, a really good. So I started mountain biking like 20 years ago, and then I migrated into road cycling. And, the kids around here, they pick up their mountain bikes and they just bike over, and they have friends who come over on their mountain bikes. And so I was like, you know what? I want them to be more into cycling as a mode of transportation. Like clearly they're not into the club stuff in the event, because I tried that and it didn't work. They had a bad experience, and I was kind of backpedaling to try and move them forward to getting more back on the bicycle. Not like me, but just on the bicycle and getting fit on the bicycle and things like that. So I was like, okay, we're going to, all of us, join this cycling club, and you guys are going to go into the kids' junior mountain bike program. And I'm going to get back into mountain biking myself as a parent, supervisor, coach. So it wasn't me dropping them off. We are all together learning the skills again. And funny, we so it's going well, better than I thought it would, because mountain biking, if you've ever mountain biked, and I'm sure some of our listeners have, It is nerve-wracking. Like when I
Yes.
mountain biked when I was 30, that's 20 years ago. It didn't matter what I was biking over. Like, I didn't have a house. wasn't
Yeah.
married, didn't have kids. Now I'm just
Yes.
like,
Yeah.
I'm 20 years older. I'm a little bit more fragile. And I'm not as like, you know, um, how do you say, into the speed as much as I
Yeah.
used to.
Well, no,
Well, to
I
that.
think Well, I think you need those sort of man versus truck, or sort of rider versus truck, woman versus truck. I mean, I had that conversation
Mhm.
last year. And actually, I at first, so I checked my speedometer then on my computer, and I think it said I'd done 52 miles an hour, something like that, going downhill.
Yeah.
And I first looked at it thinking, I think that was a mistake, and it wasn't working. And so then I've ended again, and it was something like 55.4 miles an hour. I was like, wow,
Wow,
maybe
that is wow.
that is wow. Yeah, I was really giving it some as well. And I fallen off before doing around, I was doing around 26 miles an hour when I fell off before. So I definitely know what it's like. But you have that mindset when you've come off, you know what it feels like. So
Yeah.
I found it removes a bit of fear. But similar to what you just said, I came back and I said to my wife, and I know she thinks I was joking, but I said it to her verbally. I said, I think it's for do not resuscitate. And I think this is a conversation I think all cyclists need to have, particularly anyone in America where you've got Suburbans, Tahoes, these big vehicles. And some people, they love to get really close to you. They love to honk the horn like you're doing something wrong. No, this is a road for everyone. I'm told to be there. But I said to my wife, I think it's a do not resuscitate. She said, what do you mean? I said, I made a decision that if I come off and something severe happens to me, I said more than likely my life isn't going to be the same. So, do not resuscitate. So I don't she'll follow the advice on it, but I said that because what you said is true. That when you're road cycling, me being European, that means you're on the road, you're commanding the road, and cars are going around you because, like I said, I'm just entitled to be there as them.
Yeah.
You do have to have that conversation. I mean, I was out cycling only 2 days ago. I had this big on truck, and honestly, I feel he got as close to me as possible, really just to try and piss me off, to say, you shouldn't be on the road. So it's a solid question for your listeners to say, have you ever had that conversation about what happens if you come off, or what does it look like?
Oh my God. Yeah, no, I think you're totally right, because there is that, I never want to talk about, the possibilities of having that kind of encounter with, a car, or even crashing on a downhill, because we've heard some, horrific stories, of course.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we've all had a friend or two pass because of them. And it's not a good feeling,
I just take your podcast to all very deep and scary stuff. So I guess you need to get more lighthearted. Do you want to cover crime stories? What do you want to do?
Yeah, no.
We don't want to.
I don't want to talk about crashes and death on my podcast, because it's a real thing when you are cycling. And we've all heard that story, and it's not something that I want to talk about a whole lot, because I just, when I go out there, I go with the intention of commanding respect from the vehicles, and I respect them, and I don't get in their space as much as I can. And don't be that cyclist.
Yes.
But of course, you're going to get that guy in the Tahoe that's going to, wants to get as close as you, and you've felt it. You've felt it, big trucks.
For sure.
So, and I think, just being able to know how to handle yourself if you were pushed off into I don't know. Like I said, Simon, I don't want to talk about that stuff.
Let's go lighthearted. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I just dragged you down.
Yeah, because I just did a little podcast episode about fear this morning. And it was because, I was put it out there to do some cycling coaching for hill repeats. And, it was raining, and I committed to be there. So I'm going there. Like, I don't weather doesn't affect me. Not basically whatever's doing here is not happening over there,
Yeah.
guaranteed. And a lot of girls are like, no, it's going to be slick. It's going to be slippery. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about, but like, that's not,
Yeah.
that's not going to happen. There's,
it's funny you say that because it is true. I think there is, like I said, I came off when I think I was doing about 26 miles an hour. I was going down. I couldn't unclip quick enough, and so know what it feels like. But it also tying it back to the fatherless. It's about doing something that is hard. Cycling 100 miles for most, that is hard. And I think there is two things with cycling. One, there is that fear. And there's the hardness of you got to push through, you've got to persevere. So like I said, in this race, there's some people that have never really been into cycling, but for them it's about doing something which is hard for the sacrifice of others. So I can relate to what you're saying there. There can be a fear that comes with it, but
but you know what, I was talking about the fear of talking yourself out, like, oh, it's raining. And the same thing with, event like that. Oh my God, how could I possibly? Well, you will do it, but you will, your butt might not be the same for a while, but you'll do it.
I don't know, Sylvie, if that's a fear or a sort of talking yourself out of it, as in, hey, I don't want to do this.
It's the story,
to feel,
right? It's the stories we tell ourselves. And then you get some people in there convincing you not to go. And I was just like, you know what? You should just commit and don't turn back and just show up, because you're going to benefit from, coming out. So, but, for our listeners, I love that, I love that I found out that you were a cyclist. And so Simon attended one of my bike maintenance webinars, and I love what you said, because I used your testimonial in some of my ads, and what did you say? I shamed you into some. What did you say, Simon?
But I can't remember what I said, but the basis was, and I'm stuttering to get out my words now, to embarrass. But
embarrassed you to action.
Yeah, because I think I'm like a lot of guys in that. I have all the nice expensive kit, but don't necessarily know how to use it. And I think you embarrass me to action, as in I need to go and learn more of the mechanics about it. I think that's the importance, is to learn how things happen. And most of my life I do that. But within cycling, I got a bit lazy and I just take it to the bike shop and it comes back, it's clean as pristine. So you embarrass me to act and say, I need to learn about this. So
that was the quote of the summer.
That's good.
I loved it. Yeah, I loved it. So I can't wait to hear about how your event goes. I know that this is the second year, so you know exactly what to expect. And I'm sure that you're going to be out there helping a lot of men participate and getting them through to the end. Is this a large loop, by the way?
No, it starts and ends in a different location. So
really?
You sort of loop around a little bit. But yeah, it starts in Minneapolis and ends up sort of 40, 50 miles to the north. But you sort of do a loop around to the lakes and different areas. So, I mean, we are blessed in Minnesota with some very nice roads. So
wow.
Yeah.
So is there a festival, kind of, not a festival, like a whole event after, like a celebration at the end?
Not so much, but I think as it grows, like I said, if people go to the website, if you just type in Fathers for the Fatherless, the event will come up. Jeff Zarg is now taking it, so I think it's in 6, 7, or 8 different states.
I saw that, like about 5.
And each year it seems to be growing. Like I said, last year in Minneapolis we had 130. I think it could be, mid 150s. So every year it's growing as people hear more about the cause. And I think that's something that the organisation will need to add, is to make more of a festival about it. So if you take the sort of, you said it's 5 cities online, there could be close to sort of 600, 700, 800 people that do this ride across the country. So powerful.
Wow, it is powerful. And I'm glad that we got you on here to talk about your experience and the event. And we're hoping to get Jeff on here so we can dive deep into how the event was created. So Simon, I love that you come out here and you've told us about your story, and shared it with our listeners. So we will add all the show notes, the donation link, the link to the event. Is there anything else? Oh yeah. And of course, where can people find you?
Yeah, so if people, my podcast is called Who I Became. And as Sylvie mentioned in the intro, I love to learn. I think it's because of my police background. I'm just nosy. But I love
being
learn,
nosy too.
It is, yeah. I'd love to learn how people became who they became, because it's very easy. We all look at chapter 10 and you look at my life now and people see success. But people don't appreciate the hard work, the adversity, the dedication it took to get where I am. And I'm a small element of sort of significance and success. So I love to dive into people's personal journeys to try and get the learning. How did you get to where you are? And we talk about sort of life pivots, self-discoveries and transformations. So that is the best place if people are interested in some of those subjects. Check out the Who I Became podcast. I'd love for you to come along and listen to some personal. And we've had some really cool people on there. I've had Joe Foster, who was the founder of Reebok.
Very nice.
Had
and me,
and you, yes, and you. There's a lot of cool people on there. A lot of cool people on there.
I'm a cool person.
Yeah, you are a cool person. Yeah.
You gotta dive deep to find all those good stories.
Well, we had a great conversation. We have to when it comes out, you have to put the link to your episode within your podcast as well, because that was a great conversation me and you had.
For sure. So with that, thank you so much, everyone. I will put all the link. Oh yeah, you can find Simon on Twitter and you can find Simon on Instagram. And those are the two best ones. Twitter, Instagram, and the podcast is where I spend a lot of my time hanging out. I need to do more on social media. I'm one of those guys, but I know I need to do it for people to see me, but it's a chore to do it. Yeah. I feel your pain. I am totally there. And so that's why it's kind of nice to get us in person and just learn from us on our podcast. So with that, have an amazing day, everyone. And I hope as a listener that you enjoyed this episode. Please don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Secrets from the Saddle Podcast, as well as on YouTube. And that's where all these episodes end up so that you can actually see some of your guests and get intimate with them on a one-on-one. So with that, have an amazing day. Thanks a lot, Simon. Super appreciate you. And we'll see you guys on the next episode. All right. Where's the recording? Anyways, I was going to pause it.
That's good. Yeah, I wouldn't even know. Do you have a Mac, Sylvie, or do you have a
I have a Dell.
Windows. You have a Dell, do you? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just moved to a Mac. It's like learning a new language. Yeah, that was good. That was a lot of fun. So do you do much editing and stuff do you do it yourself, or do you?
I don't edit anything.
Do you slice off the beginning and the end of the video?
Oh yeah. So I have I'll either put an ad at the beginning or I have a little intro and outro. So that's what
I like what you said, which is what I tell a lot of podcasters, is to just be yourself and be real. And I love what you said there about being intimate, is letting the people get to know who you are. I mean, I've had people before. There was a guy was struggling in his marriage and he reached out and said, hey, can I talk to you about it? I mean, it was like, I'm not a marriage counselor. He just listens to me and he wanted sort of my advice on his marriage and stuff. So I mean, it's building those intimate connections, really letting them feel like they know you, they're part of your show. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah. I figured that out pretty soon. Really close to the beginning of my podcast, because I spent there was this little tick, something in my voice that was driving me nuts, and I edited this one episode. I think it was the very first one. It took me 2 hours, and then I went on to this Facebook podcast page, and I was like, what do you guys do for edits? Do you guys edit? Everybody's like, I don't edit anything. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my God, thank you.
Yeah. That's why it made me laugh. I was on my bike one time, and I think I stopped and messaged you on Facebook, so it made me laugh. Where your husband comes in, you're like, in a minute, I'm just doing something, and it just cracked me up. It was so raw. It was.
Yeah, because I was like, am I gonna go back and find that? Probably not. Am I gonna remember? No.
Yeah, but it's so true, because I mean, I've had my cat jump on here before, when and a lot of my stuff I like to release a video like you as well. But it is, and that's why I've got to do it on my podcast, is just do these little monologues talking about myself to, because I've got a lot of shit to talk about. Just 5-10 minutes of talking to the camera and release it.
It's true. That's what I did this morning. I was like, mostly because I wasn't pissed, but I just like, girls, like, don't let fear stop you. You're gonna lose out on so many great experiences because you looked at the weather, you listened to her, you read her post, and she scared you and whatever. I'm like, stop it. I go, if you commit, just show up. Like, don't look at your phone. You are committed. Your bike is in your car. Your breakfast is there. Your shorts are there. You get out of bed, put them on, get in your car, drive to location, have a great training.
And how do you, so with the Growth podcast, because how many downloads do you get per episode then? A few thousand?
A few thousand. You know what? It's kind of funny because and I still have to figure it out, but I'm working with Bcast, and that's the platform I use, and it's on Apple and Spotify. For whatever reason, they aren't getting my episodes anymore.
Yes, and it's funny you say that, because actually the last person to reach out to me was Jeff Sarg. He uses, I think it's Libsyn is his hosting platform. I think Libsyn's a paid service. And he messaged me one time, because he was the same. He said that it wasn't pushing his episodes to Apple. And I think I said to him, open a ticket with Libsyn. I said, it's probably on their side. So it could be.
Well, I've asked them. Yeah, because so Google is getting it. Like, all these other ones are getting them. And the last ones that have been published on Apple and Spotify was number 218.
Yeah.
So I'm like 20 since then, and I'm like, so really my listenership has gone down. I'm like, and that's why, because people aren't getting them on those platforms, and I've reached out to Bcast. I was like, what's going on?
I think, and what did they say? Did they?
Well, they were reaching, like, they were looking into it. Like, I'm gonna have to check on it again, but like, I mean, those are two main places.
It is. Apple's still the monopoly. I think Apple is still. I don't know what my numbers are, but I feel like 60-70% of my listeners still come from Apple. There's one here in the US called Podcast Addict. I don't know if you've heard of that.
Oh, I just saw that one.
Yeah, they give me, it seems to have gone down a little bit, but they give me like 10-15% of my listeners from Podcast Addict. And I think that is an app predominantly for Android listeners.
Oh, okay.
Downloads. Yeah. How do you think you got the growth on your show? Do you think it was just women resonated with it? Was it through your club? Where did a lot of the growth come from on your podcast, do you think?
I don't know. Well, a lot of my growth came it's in the US and the UK, actually. I think it's predominantly because of the guests that I bring on. Like, I brought on a huge number of UK guests, and then they referred other UK guests. So it just sort of like, it's trickled like that. And so now I have those connections there, and I can always reach out to them. Now I want to do like a big episode, because the Tour de France is happening soon, and the Tour de Femmes is happening at the same time.
What's Tour de Femmes?
The women's Tour de France.
Oh, okay.
So I'm trying to get a couple, like at least, 4 women who are participating in the Tour
Yeah,
de
that'd be,
France.
yeah,
Um, as per, you know, because of this, it's so like, this is the first time, right?
yeah,
That it's not 100%. I think it's 15 stages over 21,
right, okay,
but it's the first. Like you had Paris Roubaix, which you had women there, the Giro, their women's teams there. So it's starting become impactful to get the
yeah,
women back in, since 1984 was the
wow,
last time. 89, no, 84. I think it was 86, 86, 89,
mm,
maybe 89.
yeah,
Um, when they had women in the Tour de France, like I've interviewed a couple
that's pretty
ladies.
cool. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's a long time ago though.
Yeah, yeah, it
30
really is.
years.
Yeah, 30 years. Yeah, bad, bad. Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's going to be huge this year. Um, and I have some contacts there, but it's still, hard to, you really do need a formal introduction
yeah.
to
To get to, yeah,
somebody.
yeah.
Yeah, to
And
get
actually,
somebody.
there's a woman that I met. I think she approached me through matchmaking, maybe. I can't remember
Oh.
how it happened. Called Clarissa Burt. His name. She's a sort of was a bit of an actress. But then me and her were talking. I think we were recording on my podcast in a couple of weeks. And then we got talking about Joe Foster, the founder of Reebok, and she said, "Oh, can you connect me to him?" And I said, "Well, who can you trade?" And she said, "Well, I can give you the founder of Vogue." So I think it is asking those guests as well, isn't it? Trying to, but I've often found that some of mine. You never truly know who your listeners are, but whenever I talk about men's issues, my listeners, the downloads seem to go up, and I think it's women sharing it with their significant others. But I've often found that some of the bigger guests aren't necessarily the most downloaded.
Yeah.
But because sometimes people have heard their story 10 times before, so it's trying to find something unique and stuff, isn't it, out of it? But,
Yeah, and I find, like, the thing is that not a whole lot of male subjects are being talked about. So
yeah,
you
yeah.
got like yourself a niche there that you probably should
Yeah.
really
Yeah. Well, actually,
explode on.
the one that was really good is a friend of mine from the UK. Well, actually, I never met him in person, got to know him through the internet, but he's in the UK. And it was me and him talking about sort of fatherhood issues, similar to what I started to touch on with you. But, his dad was present in his life, but he might as well have not been present. So there's two ways to look at fatherhood. There's someone who's physically not there, or there's someone
Yeah.
who's present but not there. And me and him sort of dive into that conversation. And he was the same, he'd go to a hardware store and not know what to do because no one's been there really helping him. So yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of what I try to be more, because like that was exactly my dad,
Yeah.
right? There but not there. And so I found that, you know, me knowing that's kind of how I was running my relationship with my kids, like
Yeah.
just sort of letting my husband do all the
Yeah.
stuff, and
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
busy doing other things. And but then at the end of the day, it's just sort of like you kind of feel it, because then you feel like a complete outsider in your
Yeah.
family.
Mm.
And nobody asks you to do anything
Yeah.
because you've just never
Yeah.
been around there a lot.
Yeah,
So
it's a real snap to get yourself out of it, isn't it? Because that's how
it
you've been
is.
sort of conditioned, and perhaps your dad, maybe that was the same with his dad, but he wasn't also
They
learning
were
and stuff.
staunch farmers, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
it just didn't happen, right? You had
yeah,
7 kids on the farm, worked on the farm.
mm,
But the thing is that, as we get older, we always have the ability to make some changes.
yeah,
And whether you realize it or not. Like, like either you realize it or you don't realize it, like that
yeah,
you need to make these changes. And
yeah.
I don't think my dad's like will ever come to that conclusion that he was that kind of dad. I don't even
Yeah.
think he ever
Well,
even
and
said
he
that.
might not, but you have, and that's the difference.
Mhm.
You haven't seen that stuff. Yeah, yeah. So how has
Mm.
Post Fast Foundations been for you? You managed to take the stuff because your main business model is from your membership, right? Is that where you get most of your?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I'm kind of more growing my brand locally, like
Yeah.
within women and the bike clinics and things
Yeah.
like that. So it's not a big money maker, but um, you know who I did start, I reached out for help is Sarah Jansel.
Sarah
She's
Jensen. Oh
a
yeah, Shopify. Yeah.
the
Yeah.
Shopify
Yeah.
queen. Yeah, so I joined one of her presentations and like because I have a website and I have all these other platforms where I either have a membership or I'm taking money there or I'm taking money here and I'm
Yeah.
just like, "Oh my gosh, I need to simplify this like cuz it's driving me bananas." And then I
Yeah.
just listened to her and I'm like, "Shopify does this and you got that and it moves for this." And also I was looking at a website that had mountain bike clinics. I was doing some research
Interesting.
for somebody and I came across this clinic. It's local here and the whole setup. And I was like, I wonder where they host that. And it was Shopify. And I'm
Oh
like,
wow. Okay.
I
Yeah.
needed to like that was a nice page,
Yeah.
simple, taking registrations. And I'm like,
There's a lot to be said about having everything in one place. Actually, I use a system
yeah.
called Kajabi, which mostly won't help
Oh,
you because
Kajabi is the other one
yeah,
too,
because
but
Kajabi, that's really good for courses, maybe not some of your stuff, but they also do podcast hosting. So my goal is to get everything in one page. You can see when people buy, you can do your marketing. It is a good tool because if you can get the right. What I'm working on this year is getting more exposure. Doing more marketing because that's one thing I've not really focused on too much is getting out there and being known. And Kajabi helps me do a lot of that stuff.
yeah. One thing I'm working on is getting ads on my podcast.
Yes, yes, yeah. You
So I
should for
put
sure
that
do that.
together
Yeah,
and now it's reaching out and just finding
yeah,
people,
yes, it is.
just
Yeah,
putting
yeah,
it out there,
yeah,
on LinkedIn or Instagram, whether it's like cycling gear or just straight up services, things like that.
yeah.
Um, yeah, so that's
Yeah,
kind of
you
my
should. Well,
focus.
also on your business model as well, you could even try and get products for you to then give reviews on. Is it your Instagram where you're most
Yeah,
popular
so
thing?
I'm
Yeah,
doing that. So that's what I've hired Sarah. So
yeah,
Shopify will host like all of that stuff. I do have like a very simple downloadable videos for cycling skills. It's a 4-week program, like 1 hour a week, where I talk about different like pedal stroke, hill climbing, speed, nutrition. And I've done all these in videos. So I don't need something like Kajabi, right? I
yeah.
just
No,
need
yeah,
like something they're just like 3 videos each.
yeah,
And people, the way I'm going to market is you can just download if you want to know about hills. Well, you just download the hill stuff. You want to
yeah,
know how to make your pedal stroke smoother. You download that.
yeah. And
Um,
Shopify will let you do that with video, then, will it?
It's a extra, but
Right.
it's a
Okay.
free. It's what is it? It's called wrong sheet. It's another so Kajabi is pretty robust. Like it's
Yes.
not
Yeah.
a big program. It's Thinkific.
Oh, yes. It's the same as Kajabi. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's free and my program's very basic.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's what we're going to be using.
Yeah.
And OmniSend is the CRM kind of that's going to be
Right. Okay.
working with Shopify.
Yeah.
And Shopify is kind of like almost your CRM as well. So
Well, one question on Thinkific, whatever it's called, I think it's Thinkific. A friend of mine
yeah.
used that to run a very successful business. Do you, how long is it free for? How many products do they give you before they charge you?
I haven't looked at it. So I think for what I'm doing, it's what you need, I don't know. Yeah. But it's pretty basic what I need it for.
If you get to the point, I know that I think it's Melissa Yankovic, who's also in Fast Foundations. I reached out to her quite a lot during Fast Foundations because, I think it's Jessica Yankovic maybe.
Oh, Jessica, yeah.
Yeah, because she uses Kajabi. So I think if you get to the point, where you've got to pay, I reached back out because I would say that Kajabi is a platform. Once you start paying, I would move to Kajabi because it does the CRM, it does it does the mailing. You can upload videos in there. You can do your newsletters. Everything is in one. You can even host your podcast in Kajabi as well. That's what I'm moving my to. I pay like $400 a year. With capital, I'm gonna move mine over into like June, July time before I charge again. So everything is all in one place.
Right. Yeah. I think I was talking to another guy about my podcast where Google Podcast is a good place to host, like have your podcast website.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Because it just like everything links there, right? Like
yes, podcasts. It does. Yeah.
So he highly recommended that. He said it was like $12 a year.
Yeah, that's cheap, like that. Isn't it? That's good. Yeah.
Yeah. So I haven't looked into that, but there's just so many things. Like right now, I just have a WordPress site, and I use Keep or Infusionsoft for all my landing pages.
Yeah.
I really like to get rid of that.
Well, you can do landing pages. Like I said, a friend of mine runs his business in Thinkific. You can run landing pages there as well. You can most probably, I think, anytime that you can get everything all in one location is really great, and it cuts down a lot of costs as well. Yeah, have a look. Right, you can definitely build landing pages there with them. Sure.
Yeah. Yeah, because anyways, so what I'm doing right now is in WordPress on my website is replicating those landing pages there so that when I get rid of it or like build another website, like everything's there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And all I need is to link like to where people go and pay.
Yeah, to do, yes.
So it's like one place where I can do all my updates and everything. Because right now it's like all the links go to these landing pages, and that's where I do the updates.
And see, like in Kajabi as well, I don't know if I could replicate it in from Squarespace, but my personal brand, my SimonOsmo.com is within Squarespace. I could basically move that into Kajabi as well and just have everything in one location. Yeah. That's my goal to do it. But yeah,
that's what you're doing, right?
Yeah, trying to get everything in there centralized. Yeah. Well, I've got to call someone in the.
All right.
In the UK,
well, thanks, Simon.
Yeah, no, great conversation. Yeah. When? How often do you release your episodes? When will this one come out?
Well, this one will come out. Yours will come out. Just a second. I just added it in here. Hold on. Let me just look.
You got a printed spreadsheet and everything.
Oh, this is my cow. This is really basic. You like it?
Okay, yeah.
So you are number 249. 249. So you will. Oh, you're into July.
Oh, that's
249,
good.
July 4th.
Yeah, that'd be good because the race will be race is end of August, so that'd be a good time.
Okay, so you want to see this? This is my podcast.
That's your calendar. Yeah. I wonder if I can show you.
And this goes on my wall right here.
Well, if you want, I can show you. Send you a 10 minute. Can you allow me to share my screen a second? I'll see if I can find my. I'm gonna do this.
Okay.
It says still disabled. You have to click on your share screen and then.
Host disabled, participant share. Oh, oops. Hold on here. Oh. It just says pin. No, hold on.
Let me have a look.
Remove pin. Claim host. Oh.
Yeah, if you look on share, it normally allows other people to share if you click on it.
I don't know. I can't. It doesn't.
Oh, it doesn't give you. Okay. I'll just send you my empty template. I've got a spreadsheet that I used. So when you click on share screen, then it doesn't give you different options to a side. Do you see three dots to the side of share screen at the bottom?
No.
No. Okay.
This
that's
is
fine.
recording on my page, I do hope.
Yeah.
Close.
Yeah. Don't worry.
Claim host. Enter the host key.
Now, if you at the very bottom where you have like participants, chat, reactions, apps, whiteboard, do you see that at the very bottom of your screen?
I see participants, chat, share screen.
Yeah. So when you click on share screen, do you get 3 dots or do you get an option by it when you
No,
click
it says host disabled participant screen sharing.
Oh, okay, yes. So that means then that you must be logged in as not yourself. Maybe that's weird.
Yeah, I just noticed that.
Yeah, that's what
Like,
it does sometimes. Yeah.
What's this cycle fit chicks here?
Well, I'll send you my blank. I sent you my blank template, and you're welcome to use it. I talk about when I interview guests, whether I've done the show notes and stuff. It's like a checklist for each one. But,
oh, that sounds very organized. I don't know if I can handle that.
Yeah, it is organized. Yeah, it is. It is. Right, cool. I'm gonna dash. Great talking. I'll speak to you soon.
All right.
Good luck.
See you later. Bye. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. I hope that you really enjoyed our conversation, my conversation with Simon. He is just an amazing individual, or human, and I love that we got on the conversation of cycling that led us to this podcast episode and sharing the Fathers for the Fatherless, which changes lives by exposing men to a cause beyond themselves. They are propelled to challenge themselves, cycling 100 miles in response to our Heavenly Father's heart for the fatherless. Every man is called to be a father for the fatherless. Since 2019, hundreds of men have biked thousands of miles to fund local fatherlessness initiatives and provide 1.8 million meals to fatherless kids worldwide. Join the 2022 team to raising money and awareness for those without a father. So share this with someone you know that could benefit either by participating or through the cause. Thank you so much, guys. Have an amazing day, and we'll see you on the next episode.